Today I'm going to make the bent lamination for the front bullnose on the desk top, and you can see here I've got the 5 layers of walnut cut. Altogether they work out to about an inch and a little over an inch and a quarter thick, and they're going to bend around the actual desktop substrate using the front as the form. You can see in the distance I have the cutoff that I glued together. That will be the clamping coil. I got the clamps all set on the floor. I've got the top raised slightly above the clamps so that the laminates will straddle the front a little bit, a little bit sticking up on top, a little bit sticking down on bottom, so I get good clamping. I've already done a dry clamping to make sure that this works, and so we're going to go ahead and mix up some Unibond 800 and then work quickly to get this all clamped up. I thought it might be helpful to show you how I mix up Unibond 800. Unibond 800 comes in 2 parts, a liquid resin and a powdered catalyst. Catalyst comes in 3 different shades, light, medium, and dark. Because we're using walnut today, I'm going to use the dark catalyst. I've already calculated that we need about 130 grams of adhesive, so I'll mix up about 150 or a little more so that we don't run short. And a couple of things about Unibond. It is a urea formaldehyde glue, so you need to use it with plenty of ventilation. Right now I have an exhaust fan in a window across the shop and an open window on the other end of the shop, so I've got a cross ventilation. And you also don't want to have skin contact with this stuff because it can have lingering health effects, and also it sticks to your hands. So I've got some latex gloves that I'm using. Now it's best to weigh out the Unibond. You can mix it by volume, but you get better accuracy if you weigh it out. So I've got my little scale here set to grams so that it's very easy for me to do. And depending on how fast you want this to set, you can use ratios anywhere from 7 parts resin to 1 part hardener up to 12 parts resin to 1 part hardener. I usually do it 10 to 1 because it's simple. If I pour in say 150 grams of resin, then I know I need about 15 grams of catalyst. Mix it all up and I'll be in good shape. So I'll go ahead and put my pan on there, set my scale, turn my scale on, and go ahead and pour in about 150 grams. There we go. Okay. Got that back up. Now I'll use a little measuring cup here just to scoop some catalyst out here. And I'm going to go ahead and re-zero my scale. And I'm going to go ahead and put about 15 grams. There we go. Now you mix this up and then you let it sit for a few minutes to make sure that all the crystals are fully dissolved. It's about 70 degrees in the shop right now, so I've got a good long open time on this. One of the nice things about Unibond is you don't have to work extremely fast because this adhesive cures by the catalyst reacting chemically with the resin as opposed to simply moisture absorption by the substrate like most of our woodworking glues. Now also at 70 degrees Fahrenheit I need to clamp this for about 4 hours, absolute minimum, but because it's a bent lamination under stress, it really needs to be clamped until the the glue is totally hard and brittle, and this stuff gets brittle like, it reminds me of peanut brittle. And so what you do is you save your little mixing pan here and leave it in the shop, and there'll be a little bit of unused glue in the bottom, and it will eventually harden. And when it gets brittle so it just snaps, then you know that you're fully cured, and you can go ahead and take your bent lamination out of the clamps. If you're doing flat work, it's okay to take it out of the clamp when it gets to the rubbery consistency, which, like I say, at 70 degrees would be about 4 hours. The glue is rubbery but very firm, because flat work is not under any stress. The bent lamination being under stress, you want that glue to be fully set up. The other big precaution with this is you've got to be above 65 degrees to use this, or it will not cure properly. One time I actually glued up a bent lamination. I didn't pay enough attention to the temperature. It was under 65 degrees in the shop. Next day I took the piece out of the clamps, and sure enough, it delaminated. And we'll let that sit for a while, 5 minutes or so. Now there's several ways to apply the Unibond 800 to the material. One is to use a notched trowel, very fine notched trowel. But in this case I'm going to use a roller, a foam roller. That way I can get a nice thin coat on here. And I'm just going to use a foam brush to do my initial application. And I put down a little paper, of course, because I don't want to get this stuff all over my saw table that I use as a big wide table for this sort of thing. Now I'm going to put some on each surface so that I get good contact, but I don't want to get too much on here. I don't want a lot of squeeze out. So it's a little bit of a judgment call getting used to this as to how much you can put on without getting squeezed out. But I would say that if you shoot for a nice even coating without any blobs, should be okay. If it feels like you're getting it on so thick that the roller is not laying down a thin coat, but is in fact simply moving around a big puddle, then you got too much. Now I have to work quickly. Get this into the clamps. And here I'm just going to use these blocks, which I've put tape on, clear packing tape, to make sure that these edges all stay even. I'll do this at each end, just snug enough that everything stays together. And I'll do one in the center. Not too tight, because I still need these pieces to slide across one another. let's go ahead and tighten everything up and we'll be ready. Okay, the front bullnose edge banding has been in the clamps for over 24 hours, and I've taken off most of the clamps. What I wanted to demonstrate for you here is a concept of springback. Whenever you make a bent lamination, the wood tries to return to its original shape, sometimes a lot, sometimes not much. I've had times when I've glued up bent laminations where the wood actually tried to bend even more after I took the clamps off. But in this case, we're getting a good amount of springback, and I've just put these clamps on temporarily just to show you. See how much that moved? Now it's not enough that you can't go ahead and clamp it in and glue it up, but there is a considerable amount. It's something you got to consider whenever you're doing bent laminations.